What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Yaminu Predicts the Future. Today, we're talking about 7 motorcycles that will define the future of riding. Not necessarily the best bikes or the fastest or even the coolest, but just the ones that are laying the pavement for where motorcycling is heading over the next decade. Some of these bikes point towards a promising future, others towards an abysmal doom. The future of bikes is going to be simple and complex. It's going to be rudimentary and novel. At the very least, it's going to be a little bit different for better or for worse. The future of motorcycling is everything all the time. Let's get into it. First up, we have the motorcycle that stole the show at EICMA this year and last year, and honestly broke the internet when it was first released as a rolling chassis a full year ago, the Honda V3R e-compressor prototype. This is the bike that had Honda essentially walking on stage and saying, "Hey everyone, internal combustion isn't dead. Don't believe me? Hold my Asahi." The V3R represents what might be the single most promising direction for gas-powered motorcycles. Cleaner, smaller engines boosted with electronically controlled forced induction. Honda calls this system an e-compressor, which is basically a supercharger or a little turbo powered by an electric motor instead of by a belt or exhaust gases. I know that triggers all the car people because they want such a delineation between turbos and superchargers, whatever. It's a spinny little wheel that puts more power into the engine. Quit being a fucking nerd about it. That means instant boost with no lag and programmable boost and power delivery. This isn't your grandpa's CX650 turbo from the 80s that wanted to kill you when the boost kicked in at 7,000 RPM. The V3R could be essentially boost by wire with electronically gated torque curves. It makes me very excited, and I'm glad you can't see what's underneath this table. The prototype at EICMA showed a 900cc V3, which sounds a bit weird. We've never really seen that engine configuration before, but remember, Honda has been behind countless bizarre engine experiments over the years. In fact, it may be kind of weird for you to think, but they're the most experimental motorcycle manufacturer that's ever existed. It's speculated to make between 150 to 170 horsepower, which is impressive, not because the number is huge, but because the engine itself is small, light, and optimized for tightening emissions compliance. I mean, think about it this way. An MT-09 makes like 115 horsepower. A 900cc V3 making 170 is a lot of extra juice. The whole point of this bike is a small engine with huge performance. A smaller displacement boosted engine means lower emissions, more fuel efficiency, more power, and a compact chassis design. Honda says their e-compressor dramatically increases thermal efficiency, boosts low-end and mid-range torque, and allows for downsizing without neutering performance. It's basically everything we need for the future of internal combustion engine motorcycles. Forced induction is the next frontier for performance. Cars figured this out decades ago, and now everything has turbos. Motorcycles have held out because the packaging is hard, heat is a problem, and motorcycle turbo lag is scary as hell. Imagine hitting boost mid-lean and just whoop, high side. But emissions compliance is getting tighter every year, and the only sustainable way to keep making combustion engines alive with serious performance is to make them smaller and boost them. The V3R concept proves that Honda is preparing for that future, and I'm all for it if the other alternative is just get a bunch of EV motorcycles. Do not want that. Get ready for this machine, because in 2035, you'll see boosted 300s making 100 horsepower, and then you can think back and laugh about how we used to think 75 horsepower parallel twins were exciting. The next bike that's going to start really defining stuff in the future is the Triumph Tiger Sport 800, because this bike represents the beginning of a trend the industry desperately needs, and it's the return of sport touring motorcycles. For the last decade, ADV bikes have completely taken over as the default endpoint for someone who has grown out of their super sport era. I mean, it is ridiculous. Do you guys remember the cafe racer craze and the scrambler craze? We've had this long tail of adventure craze, and quite frankly, as an adventure bike owner, I'm kind of tired of it, because these bikes are huge, tall, expensive, complex, and heavy. And at least half, if not more, of ADV bike owners never really take them off-road or embark on any serious adventures. Most adventure bikes are lifestyle purchases and glorified commuter machines, and I think a lot of people are tired of the ADV cosplay and want something with the practicality of an adventure bike without the concessions for road use or the price tag associated with them. The Tiger Sport 800 really is the embodiment of that machine. It's got a nice, smooth, torquey 3-cylinder engine, and it puts it in a comfortable chassis meant for street riding, not imaginary off-road fantasies. It's comfortable, it has wind protection, and enough power to have some serious fun without the bulk of a huge ADV bike. The sport touring resurgence is happening in real time as Suzuki just unveiled the SV7GX, a sport touring bike based on the old SV650. Yamaha has the Tracer 7 GT in Europe, and Triumph is seeing that wave coming because riders want usable, affordable, middleweight power, 17-inch wheels, upright ergonomics, wind protection, and all-day comfort, even if they don't think they know it yet. I think middleweight sport tours are really going to start stealing many people away from the ADV segment. And the Triumph Sport 800 is the first sign of that shift, because we're finally getting cool and interesting engines in this configuration. Now, not to turn this into a Honda glaze fest, but Big Red is definitely on their game these days. Next up on the list is the CB750 Hornet, the bike that said the MT-07 is not as good as you've been led to believe. The Hornet earns its place here because it is the blueprint for the future of middleweight naked bikes. It has a great, fun engine, it's easy to ride, and it provides stupidly good value for money. This bike uses Honda's new-ish 755cc parallel twin that's good for about 90 horsepower. This engine puts it squarely in the fast enough for most people category. The torque comes on early and it pulls smoothly all the way to the 10,000 RPM redline, all while never making you feel like you won't make it home to your hentai pillows. It's super nimble, flickable, and predictable. It's a normal, everyman's motorcycle that also happens to rip pretty damn good. In regard to pricing, Honda pretty much dropped a hydrogen bomb on every other bike in this class. The MT-07, Trident 660, GSX 8S, it undercuts all of them, while over-delivering on performance and features. The Hornet proves that middleweight bikes of the future are going to be affordable, fun, easy to manufacture, and aimed for high-volume sales, because less than a year into its entrance into the US market, this bike is already selling like hotcakes. The CB750 also doesn't feel like a stepping stone motorcycle. It feels like a bike you could own for a really long time and never need anything else, because it has that extra bit of top-end power over something like the MT-07, and it's still refined and nice enough that you'd want to keep it for a long time. Motorcycles need to continue to provide value, approachability, and fun. The Honda Hornet fits well within that 3-circle Venn diagram. In the next decade, every middleweight twin will constantly be looking over its shoulder, knowing the Hornet is right there, ready to eat its lunch. The Hornet's going to function a lot like the MT-07 did back in 2013, setting the tone, setting the stage, and being the benchmark. Alright boys, I've got to tell you about the camera that has absolutely changed the way we shoot motorcycle content, the DJI Osmo 360. I've been in this game for over a decade now, and the Osmo 360 has made shooting on the bike footage the easiest it's ever been. The Osmo 360 packs a full 360-degree lens setup into a tiny 183-gram body. It's lighter and 100 times more capable than old-school action cameras. I can mount this thing on my helmet, on the handlebar, or even the tail of the bike, and it feels like it's not even there. And because it's so small, it doesn't catch wind like a brick strapped to your head. For a moto vlogger or anyone making bike content, this is the type of thing that makes the difference during all-day shoots. But the real magic is what you can do with that 360-degree footage. When we ride, we can now get so many unique and dynamic angles to provide way more visual interest in our videos. Plus, you never know what you'll capture when out on the bike. I was out filming recently and I ended up rescuing some old-timer who crashed his bike into a ditch. Those are moments you don't want to miss. With the Osmo 360, you capture everything at once, and then later you just reframe the shot to whatever angle you want. No more thinking about where the camera's pointed, you literally cannot miss the moment. And since it shoots up to 8K 360 video with silky smooth stabilization, even if your bike is vibrating like a Harley with a loose motor mount, the footage stays smooth. It even has a built-in memory, so if you forget a memory card, you're still covered. The battery life is ridiculous too, up to 100 minutes of 8K 360 footage on just a single battery, or 120 minutes in endurance mode. That covers an entire run through the twisties, a whole track session, or like 3 vlogs discussing the merits of Italian V4 superbikes. If you want to start making motorcycle videos or you just want the best, easiest, cleanest footage possible from your rides, the DJI Osmo 360 is the move. Hit the link down below and check it out. Thanks again to DJI for supporting the channel. Now let's get back to the video. All right, so even though I firmly believe new middleweight sport tours are going to start stealing away some customers from the ADV segment, there is no denying that entry-level adventure bikes are one of the fastest growing categories in the world. And honestly, it makes sense. The economy's in shambles and people don't have enough money, and these bikes can do a little bit of everything. And strangely enough, it is the Royal Enfield Himalayan 411 that we have to thank for that. This bike came out in 2016 with the US release in 2018. It was a bit of a head scratcher. It was kind of universally panned here at Yami Noob as well. Some of you may remember some of our, let's say, not so charitable words we had for the Royal Enfield. But is it any good? No. No.
No.
No.
No.
No! No! God, please, no! No! It was a slow, simple, basic motorcycle that looked like it had been unearthed from a military surplus crate that was buried in 1982. It looked like you could chuck moonshine and diesel at this motorcycle and it would probably run. But it had something that no other bike had done. It had made adventure riding cheap. Before the Himalayan, adventure bikes meant getting a BMW GS or a KTM Super Adventure or whatever the hell. You had to be tall, experienced, and financially endowed. The Himalayan changed that by being approachable. It didn't care if you were tall, rich, or planning on climbing a mountain range or going to Starbucks. It was the people's ADV bike, and I think it makes sense because it came from India, where people just needed a great, cheap, simple motorcycle to cross across their roads that we consider adventure bike roads, but they just think are regular-ass roads. And because of that success, it spawned an entire generation of entry-level adventure bikes like the KTM 390 Adventure, CF Moto's Ibex 450, and Himalayan's own updated Himalayan 450, and the upcoming BMW F450 GS. The 411 single-cylinder engine makes just 24 horsepower, and that's not a lot of ponies, I will admit. But this bike is not about power. It's about the ratio of capability to price. Long suspension travel, luggage, spoked wheels, and knobby tires, all for mere peanuts. When it first debuted in the States, it cost just $4,500. This bike will continue to define the future because entry-level adventure riding is becoming more and more synonymous with entry-level riding in general. Riders are looking for value, versatility, and comfort. They want to do pavement, dirt, and gravel on the weekends and then commute with the bike on Monday. And they want to do it all without spending $15,000. The Himalayan 411 didn't just start the segment, it democratized adventure motorcycling, and we gotta thank it for that. All right, the Kawasaki Z1100 shows us where inline 4-cylinder engines are headed. It is a big, detuned, smooth, torquey inline 4 that represents the future of the format. Inline 4s used to be the default engine platform for high-performance engines and motorcycles. They were the king of Japanese sport bikes. But with European emissions restrictions and market shifts kind of changing, it's looking a little different nowadays. No longer will you be ringing out a 599cc inline 4 to 17,000 RPM. Middleweight bikes are overwhelmingly parallel twins or triples, and the most hardcore high-performance machines are V4s, with a few holdouts notwithstanding. Any remaining high-strung inline 4s are becoming a bit of a novelty, but it's not entirely the end. The Z1100 shows us what the future of inline 4s will look like, for better or worse. We're entering the wave of large displacement, low-stressed machines, and instead of those 600cc race replicas, the future is going to be 1,000 to 1,200cc inline 4s tuned for, like 130 horsepower. They'll offer more torque, longer service intervals, fewer emissions, low vibrations, and bulletproof reliability. I mean, these brands have been making inline 4s like this for like 40 years. These things will not break. So, is it boring? Yeah, kinda, honestly, but this is the future for inline 4s in our opinion. The Z1100 fits the mold perfectly. It's powerful enough to have some fun, but pretty docile all things considered. 130 horsepower isn't insane. The shift is happening because of emissions regulations, insurance costs, and manufacturing ease. The inline 4 will carry on, but it won't be a superbike engine anymore. Just a big, smooth, everyday engine. Okay, this is a bit of an oddball pick, and stick with me here, but I think the future of American cruisers is going to look pretty much exactly like the Indian Scout. Why is that? Because the American cruiser is in decline. Harley is going down the tubes. Indian was bought by private equity and is probably doomed as well. Bagger racing has had zero impact on production models. Let's be completely honest here. The Sportster lineage, the default American motorcycle for 60 years, is basically gone. So that means the Scout sort of accidentally became the primordial cruiser of the future. And I don't think they're going to change much past that. V-twin engine, low seat, classic styling, affordable by American cruiser standards. It's the last American cruiser that feels like it came from the same cultural DNA of cruisers from the golden years. Cruisers are the slowest moving segment in motorcycling, not just on the street, but also in terms of technological advancement. They evolve once every 2 or 3 decades. With Harley and Indian both in dire straits, innovation in the American cruiser world has essentially frozen. I feel like the Scout is the final form for a long time, which is good because it's a decent, good enough motorcycle. It's a cruiser made in America, sounds good, it doesn't cost $30,000, and with the bar so low, that's all it takes to take the title nowadays. Unless there's some sort of miracle, the Scout may be the shape of American cruisers until internal combustion finally sunsets. All right, lastly, we're not just talking about one motorcycle, but an entire movement. Every year, we're seeing more and more bikes with automatic transmissions or some sort of electronic clutch system. The trend does not appear to be slowing down. Honda has e-clutches in the CBR 650R and Honda Transalp now in the DCT Goldwing and Africa Twin. BMW has their auto clutch thing. Yamaha has the YAMT for the MT-07, KTM, MV Agusta. Everybody's doing it, and it's seemingly all the rage. The argument, I guess, is pretty simple. Automatic bikes make motorcycling more accessible. Fewer mistakes for new riders, less stalling, more slow speed control, and for adventure riding, automatic transmissions can kind of be a bit of a cheat code. I don't know if you've ever had to dance with a clutch going up a hill or having to do technical weird stuff, but this might be a game changer. You're not going to have to hunt for gears and stalling mid-sand pit. You can focus on line choice and technique instead of the friction zone, and then when you reduce down the variables, you ride better. For street riders, it just makes everyday riding a little bit easier and less stressful. New riders are intimidated by a clutch, and the industry needs new riders. It's a simple equation, I think. Automatic bikes are inevitable, the same way that ABS was, fuel injection, and electric start. In 20 years, maybe the clutch lever will be a heritage element, like a Kickstarter on a retro cafe racer. You'll see a clutch lever on a 2040 Royal Enfield and be like, oh wow, it's so cute and vintage, that's crazy. This technology represents a future where motorcycling is more inclusive, more accessible, and more fun for more people. And if you think that makes me gay for saying it, well, maybe you're not wrong. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the show. What do you guys think? Were these spicy hot takes? Do I need to make an apology video? Should I have started the video out by saying I was about to rustle some feathers and say something controversial? I'm about to drop a hot take, no cap. The V3R is bussin' for real, for real. Okay, the end. I can't even keep that up without wanting to throw up in my mouth. Fact! Most of the universe is invisible. About 80% of the universe is dark matter, which current technology cannot observe. There's so much of it out there. There's so much out there. Have you ever sat there and thought about how much out there is? I need to go think about this. Goodbye.